Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. Genesis chapter 22, more infamous events. Now remember, last chapter, Isaac was freshly born, and now we're going to see where he very nearly dies at the hand of his father. For those of you that haven't heard this before, where have you been? But yeah, let's get right into it. Chapter 22. Some time afterwards, God put Abraham to the test. He said to him, Abraham. And he answered, Here I am. And he said, Take your son, your favored one, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the heights that I will point out to you. So early the next morning, Abraham saddled his ass, and took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. He split the wood for the burnt offering, and he set out for the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place from afar. Then Abraham said to his servants, You stay here with the ass. The boy and I will go up there. We will worship, and we will return to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and put it on his son Isaac. He himself took the firestone and the knife, and the 2 walked off together. Then Isaac said to his father Abraham, Father? And he answered, Yes, my son. And he said, Here are the firestone and the wood, but where is the sheep for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, God will see to the sheep for his burnt offering, my son. And the 2 of them walked on together. They arrived at the place of which God had told him. Abraham built an altar there, and he laid out the wood. He bound his son Isaac. He laid them on the altar on top of the wood. And Abraham picked up the knife to slay his son. Then an angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham! And he answered, Here I am. And he said, Do not raise your hand against the boy, or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your favored one, from me. When Abraham looked up, his eye fell upon a ram, caught in the thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering in place of his son. And Abraham named that site Adonai Yireh, whence the present saying, On the mount of the Lord there is vision. The angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time from heaven, and said, By myself I swear, the Lord declares, because you have done this and not withheld your son, your favored one, I will bestow my blessing upon you, and make your descendants as numerous as the stars of the heaven and the sands on the seashore, and your descendants shall seize the gates of their foes. All the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by your descendants, because you have obeyed my command. Abraham then returned to his servants, and they departed together for Beersheba. And Abraham stayed in Beersheba. Some time later, Abraham was told, Milcah too has borne children to your brother Nahor, Uz the firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Chesed, Hozo, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel, and Bethuel being the father of Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother, and his concubine, whose name was Rimah, also bore children, Tebah, Gaham, Tahash, and Maacah. Oh, there ends chapter 22. Those ancient names, they're hard to keep pronouncing back to back. So here we have the legendary event where Abraham is told by God to sacrifice his son. Remember, when sacrifice is involved, it's a ritual meal. In our modern day of thinking, we kind of see the bad guy standing over the pretty young girl with a knife and uttering whatever it is, drawing his dagger into it, and then her energy evaporates from her. No. Sacrifices, the reason they involve a sheep, a ram, a rabbit, whatever the heck it is because you eat the sacrifice afterward. So Abraham was ready to kill and eat his own son by the command of God. And God makes note of this. He keeps saying, Isaac, your favored one. This is the one I gave to you, and now I'm taking him back. More disturbingly, Abraham makes Isaac carry the firewood for his own sacrifice. This is what you do with a pack animal. Now, I admit, I can understand Abraham not telling Isaac why they were going there, because who wants to be sacrificed? But making him carry all the implements of sacrifice too, just, again, as a modern person, it's difficult for us to understand what is happening and what's going through their mind. Now, interestingly, I use that word a lot. I'm going to try to go look at a thesaurus later. This is the first and only time Isaac and Abraham speak to each other in the Bible. Isaac has a lot of speaking parts later, but this is the only time he speaks to his father. Presumably he spoke to him before, but with such a breach of caring between father and son, it would be understandable for them to be rather distant after this. Abraham, what do you want to say about him? He's doing as he's told. I kind of have this headcanon where God on occasion just kind of messes about with people. And there's this temptation aspect of God demands total faith, but at the same token he will save you, which is understandable and fits in with our current worldview. But this whole ritual is just a messy thing to be working with. You're going to kill and eat your own son, and by himself he sent the servants away. That's a very disturbing undertaking. And this not only shows up in the Hebrew mythology, it shows up in Greek mythology, it shows up all over the place. This is not an isolated incident. And the Aztecs were not the only ones that were ripping people's hearts out and eating them. Unfortunately, it's something that humans do worldwide. But while we're on this depressing subject, let's go on to chapter 23, where Sarah passes away. Chapter 23. Sarah's lifetime, the span of Sarah's life, came to 127 years. Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, now Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham proceeded to mourn for Sarah and to bewail her. Then Abraham rose from beside his dead and spoke to the Hittites, saying, I am a resident alien among you. Sell me a burial site among you, that I may remove my dead for burial. And the Hittites replied to Abraham, saying to him, Hear us, my lord. You are the elect of God among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our burial places. None of us will withhold his burial place for you for burying your dead. Thereupon Abraham bowed low to the people of the land, the Hittites, and he said to them, If it is your wish that I remove my dead for burial, you must agree to intercede for me with Ephron, the son of Zohar. Let him sell me the cave of Machpelah which he owns, which is at the edge of his land. Let him sell it to me at the full price for a burial site in your midst. Ephron was present among the Hittites, so Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the Hittites, all who entered the gate of his town, saying, No, my lord, I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. I give it to you in the presence of my people. Bury your dead. Then Abraham bowed low before the people of the land and spoke to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, saying, If only you would hear me out, let me pay the price of the land. Accept it from me, that I might bury my dead there. And Ephron replied to Abraham, saying to him, My lord, do hear me. A piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? Go and bury your dead. Abraham accepted Ephron's terms. Abraham paid out to Ephron the money that he had named in the hearing of the Hittites, 400 shekels of silver at the going merchant's rate. So Ephron's land in Machpelah near Mamre, the field with its cave, and all the trees anywhere within the confines of the field passed to Abraham as his possession, in the presence of the Hittites, of all who entered in the gate of his town. And then Abraham buried his wife Sarah in the cave of the field of Machpelah, facing Mamre, now Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And thus the field with its cave passed from the Hittites to Abraham as a burial site. Well, pretty sad couple chapters. Abraham's wife Sarah passes away at 127 years. And then we get this really unusual back and forth going on. You can see the Hittites respect Abraham. He's been hanging around them. And in fact, the Hittites, we're gonna see them again and again. The historical Hittites came from Turkey. The biblical Hittites were Philistines, and indeed, they were one of the people that the Israelites spared when they came back to conquer the land. So there's this closeness between the Israelites and the Hittites that is displeasing to the Lord, but it does keep coming up. We can see here there's transactions between them. King Abimelech is giving money, silver, slaves, all that sort of stuff. They trade livestock, they trade sacrifices, and here it is when it's time to bury the dead. Abraham buys a whole field that he insists on buying. Now this is where things get a little bit strange, like always in the Bible. But he buys this cave. Well, logical. People are buried below ground, mostly in the world. And he negotiates for this cave. Now, the Hittites keep telling him, take whatever it is. But Abraham has this idea that whatever happens, he needs to have an undisputed claim to whatever he does. Remember, he said to the king of Sodom, you will not say that you made me rich, therefore I only will take expenses. And here he's saying, hey, you got to listen to me. I got to buy this from you. He's really keeping his records clear. He's kind of establishing his own independent state within these other people's states. And at the same token, he's keeping, again, his hands clean, as he is the favored of the Lord. So this whole thing comes down to it. Now, the actual negotiation between Ephron and Abraham is kind of funny. Abraham says, okay, I need a place to go. I want this particular land. And Ephron originally wants to give it to him. Now, Abraham, for whatever reason, insists on paying a price. So Ephron names 400 shekels of silver. That is not a paltry amount. It's actually quite a bit. But the way he says it, it's almost like a used car salesman. It's 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and I? Go and bury your dad. Yeah, like your friend. What's a couple $100 between us? You're my friend. Go and bury it. It's still quite a bit of money. I mean, the medieval equivalent would be a medieval laborer's full-time job for a full year would only pay about 16 to 30 pieces of silver. Now, different money, different times, and we don't know what the merchant's rate is. If you notice the appeal to a merchant's rate, that's because since the very beginning, there has always been a concern about standardized weights and standardized currency. The earliest kings from Sumer tried to address this. The earliest Chinese emperors are doing this, and to this very day, we're still trying to standardize measurements. So here we are in the Bible, not quite at the beginning, but pretty close to the beginning. And they're already saying, hey, we got to make sure that each shekel of silver is the same size, same weight, same value. Very peculiar negotiations for a bunch of frickin' farm boys, wouldn't you say? Once again, it shows Abraham is not a shepherd. He does have sheep, he has cattle, He has more servants than he can shake a stick at. He has people born into his household. And he's got multiple families. It's not implied, but, well, sorry, it is implied. We know about Ishmael, we know about Isaac, but there's kind of this hint from God about everyone born from you, I'll make a nation out of you. So just because we only know about Isaac and Ishmael doesn't mean we know how many other nations were found from Abraham's loins. I think in the next chapter it does go a bit into that, because I can't recall whether this is Apocrypha or not, but I think he does sire another couple children after Sarah has passed away. But I focus on the chapters I'm reading. I'm not really focused on what comes next. I read it over quickly, get it into my head, figure out what I'm going to say about it, and then I kind of move on. Because the Bible itself has to be taken critically. And I'm just here to dissect each individual chapter and figure out what everything's about. But there we are. Sarah, the second woman in the Bible who gets to say anything. The second woman in the Bible with a name, Hagar's the third. And yeah, her story is over, but the overall story is still going. We'll get more into that tomorrow. We wish to thank you for joining us for the Silverlight Show. If you enjoyed this show, please like, share, and subscribe. Please take a look at the books in the description. We're not monetized by YouTube yet, but we would still like, well, the books are 99 cents for an ebook and under $10 for a paperback book, depending on shipping in your area. There's more coming, and something should seem right for you. But no matter what, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and you hope you have a fantastic day.